Cronos 1993. Cronos is a 1992 Mexican horror drama film written and directed by Guillermo Del Toro and starring Federico Luppi and Claudio Brook and Ron Perlman. Cronos is Del Toro's first feature film, the first of several films he worked on with Luppi and Perlman. A standalone sequel, Somos Lo que Somos, was released in 2010, with Daniel Giménez Cacho as the only connection, reprising his role as Tito the coroner. Cronos is an artifact created by a medieval alchemist, inside of which is installed an insect, which feeds on blood and has the power to offer eternal youth. The story is fantastic because it is as if they combined a vampire with a zombie in a single person, but Del Toro gave it his own touch. Plot: in the year 1536, an alchemist from Veracruz develops a mechanism that can give eternal life. In 1937, an ancient building collapses and the alchemist, who has marble-white skin, dies when the rubble pierces his heart. Investigators go to search the alchemist's house, and although they never reveal what else was discovered in the house, we can see basins full of blood dripping from a body hanging upside down. From here we go to 1996, an elderly antiques dealer, Jesus Grease, notices that the base of an archangel statue is hollow. He opens it and finds the 460-year-old mechanism. After winding up the ornate beetle-shaped device, it unfurls spider-like legs that grip him tightly and inserts a needle into his skin, injecting him with an unidentified solution. An insect, buried inside the device and intertwined with the internal clock mechanism, produces the solution. When Jesus goes home, his wife Margaret helps him with the healing. She finds a needle still embedded in Jesus' hand and tells him that it looks like a stinger, which it was. But later we find out that the process was not completed, so there is more to see in the workings of this strange scarab-shaped artifact. That night Jesus goes to the refrigerator very thirsty, and as if he hadn't drunk water in 3 days, he finishes a jug of water. Without using a glass for more impact, he leaves the empty jug in the refrigerator again, and then sees a plate with bloody meat and can't hide the craving, but he doesn't fall and closes the refrigerator. Jesus Grease finally discovers that his health and vigor are returning, as well as his youth. His skin loses its wrinkles, his hair thickens and his sexual appetite increases. He also develops a thirst for blood. At first this disgusts him, but he finally succumbs to the temptation. He uses the device later that night, but says his nightly prayer while doing so. His granddaughter Aurora notices and begins to worry about Grease. Jesus notices her and tells her that everything is okay. Meanwhile, a rich and dying businessman, Dieter de la Guardia, who has been collecting information about the mechanism for many years, discovers that the alchemist's artifact is inside a statue and also discovers its whereabouts. He sends his American thug nephew Angel, who suffers daily abuse from his uncle for an inheritance, to buy the statue at the antique store. Angel buys the statue, but Jesus had already taken out the scarab, and when he gives it to his uncle, I imagine he gets angry and orders Jesus' store to be vandalized. The next day, we see Jesus clean-shaven and very energetic. He asks his wife insistently if she likes the change. She finally tells him yes and laughs. Jesus goes to the store to find only damage, and a note from Angel, citing him at Dieter's company, to be received 24 hours a day. Jesus goes and meets with Dieter. He explains the story of the alchemist and the operation of the insect-shaped device. Angel was carrying a shoe box which Dieter snatches, but then they realize that there were only the broken padlocks from his store, so he runs home to look for the device which his granddaughter Aurora had. She had taken it from under Jesus' bed and took it with her. During a New Year's Eve party, Grease sees a man bleeding from his nose and follows him into the men's room to clean the blood off the sink counter. Another man comes out of one of the stalls, sees the blood, and cleans it up. Grease notices blood on the floor and decides to lick it up until an unknown man walks up and kicks him in the face, knocking him out. Angel finds him, gives him some alcohol, and tries to knock him out of the mechanism. When Grease passes out, Angel places his body inside a car and pushes it off a cliff. Grease briefly wakes up and prays for survival, but seemingly dies. He later revives at a funeral home establishment and escapes before they can be cremated. He returns home and Aurora lets him in. Dieter beats up Angel for not making sure Grease's heart was destroyed and sends him to check on the body. Grease works on a letter to his wife in which he discusses the changes in his body and tells her that after completing some unfinished businesses, he will return to her. He notices that his skin burns in the presence of sunlight and sleeps in a box to avoid it. Eventually, Grease and Aurora take the mechanism to Dieter's headquarters, where the businessman offers him a way out in exchange for the device. Grease comments on his damaged skin and the businessman tells him to take it off because he has new skin underneath, which is marble white like the dead alchemist. Grease threatens to destroy the mechanism, but is told that he will die if that happens. Grease agrees to hand it over in exchange for knowing the way out, after which Dieter stabs him. Before he can deliver the killing blow to the chest, Dieter is incapacitated by Aurora and Grease feeds on Dieter. Angel finds the dying Dieter and crushes his throat with his foot, tired of his abuse and waiting for his inheritance. Angel confronts Grease on the roof of the building and brutally beats him. Grease throws them both off the roof, killing Angel. Aurora finds Grease unconscious and uses the mechanism to wake him up. Noticing his hand bleeding, Grease is tempted to feed on his granddaughter, but eventually controls himself. He then painfully destroys the mechanism, despite prior warnings. He returns home and is shown lying in bed, with Aurora and his wife present, as the film ends. Comments. The alchemist at the beginning of the film is named Fulcanelli, which was the pseudonym of a famous French alchemist of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, who mysteriously disappeared in the 1940s and whose real name and identity have never been known. In their first meeting, Dieter de la Guardia says that insects are what is truly made in the image of God and are his favorite animal. In Guillermo del Toro's second film, Mimic, a genetically modified strain of insects begins to impersonate humans, which may give us a tendency on Guillermo's part to magnify insects. In Dieter de la Guardia's office, it is revealed that he keeps the organs he has replaced from his body in jars. Much like characters in later Guillermo del Toro films, such as Eli Damaskinos in Blade 2 and Eldritch Palmer in The Strain. Both of de la Guardia's characters were deliberately comic book characters. Del Toro did it as a kind of revenge against Hollywood movies for having rather stereotypical Mexican characters. I'll leave you with some words from Guillermo that I've thought about since my teenage years as well. For me, most films right now have the great disadvantage of being dehumanizing. As much as I love the genre, I don't feel like we're witnessing the best time for horror. People become ciphers, victims that are discarded. Most of the time, a film doesn't even deal with any human issue, it's just a bloodfest. It's not even funny, and when it is funny, it's very obscene. And movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween, among others, come to mind. A curiosity is that all the original Cronos devices created for this film were stolen when production was completed, so the devices owned by Guillermo del Toro are replicas of the original molds by art designer Maria Figueroa. Finally, I leave you with a few words to take as a moral from Guillermo's message. It's painful to be alive. I feel deprived of everything. The message could be that eternal life is a nuisance, living forever is just an addiction. That's all for now, goodbye.
Estoy dando color. Hay que ser un pinche artista.
Sí. Pero no te esmeres mucho con este porque lo vamos a cremar.
¿Qué? ¿Qué la chingada? ¿Cómo que lo vamos a quemar? Me hubieras dicho antes y no lo pacho tan bonito al pendejo. Dios lo tenga en su gloria. ¡A huevo!
you.